Hey, welcome to Viking Preparedness. I am Pastor Joe Fox. Had a Viking write and ask me, hey, could you talk about when one of the spouses has to travel and Tiawaki happens or something, words, things along that line. And so, yeah, I'm going to take that and run with it. For most of my career, I traveled all over the place. And sometimes these were planned travels. Sometimes they were spur of the moment travels, and I'm gone. And I think I would like to look at it from two aspects, the person traveling and the person who stays at home. So let's get on it. In a nutshell, the person traveling has to have a plan to get home. Home is where the heart is. Home is where the family is. Home is where the stuff is. Home's the place, man. You got to have a plan to get home. And that is one reason I really dislike flying anymore. Not to mention TSA. Buffoons. Picture you're in the air flying from the Ozarks to the Pacific Northwest. You have a layover in Chicago and a 9/11 type thing happens. The plane is going to land in Chicago and then it's not taking off again. And then maybe this time it's a better plan, 9/11, and the world just starts melting down around you, and there you are stuck in Chicago, which already has like a super high murder rate. That would be bad, but you got to have a plan. And that is why I so rarely fly anymore. In our company, Prosperity, we consult with people so far all over the country, although we're trying to go international. And when we go, we drive. And that has to be figured into the cost. If somebody is in the Pacific Northwest or Maine, we're driving there. And that is to preserve our flexibility. If things go crazy and we're halfway there, we've got wheels, right? A thing I used to do, because when I worked for the government and the military, I didn't have the option usually of driving. And so we would fly. And in the organization I was a member of for a good while, it was like usually it was a group of people going to something. The low man on the totem pole was usually the one who was designated to rent the vehicle. Now, the government reimbursed them, but, it's just extra paperwork. It's a pain in the neck, yada, yada, yada. And so the lower ranking person was usually the person who had to rent the vehicle. But every trip I went on, and I was usually senior, I would rent the vehicle. I would take care of that. And I would tell all the people in my group, none of whom were ever preppers, hey, if you hear of something horrible happening in the world, you have 15 minutes to find me because I'm going back home. And at that point, home was in Kansas. And so if you want to ride, jump in. Now, this was a vehicle we rented at the airport of whatever far-flung place in the country we were at. And, you're supposed to turn it back in there. But I figured, I'm going to turn the car on, it's getting hot. I figured we'd work it out. If I rented an Enterprise in upstate New York, I'll turn it into Enterprise in Kansas and say, hey, bill me, whatever. But I'm driving home. And so having wheels is important, right? When I worked for private industry, I would go places. And the cool thing about this company was we always rented 4-wheel drive pickup trucks when we got there. And so I'm like, yeah, baby, I got a 4-wheel drive pickup truck that cost over $100 a day. I wasn't paying. I paid for it initially, but I got reimbursed for it. And so I really liked that. Now, when you travel, you can take firearms. You can take all kinds of interesting things. That guy's open carrying a .45 1911, and he's dressed like a cowboy, sort of. He's got a cowboy hat on and a short sleeve canvas shirt, pair of jeans. What kind of boots? Cowboy boots. Awesome. You might see him walk by. See that guy? Yeah, that guy. If you choose to, you can put a bob for the most part. Some accelerants, maybe, if you have them in your bob, won't be able to go. But you can put a bob in, as checked baggage. Most of the traveling I did, we didn't do that. Most of the traveling I did, I tried to just take a robust, and they've changed the rules a little bit, but I would take the biggest size carry-on bag I could, and then I would take one personal item, which was a laptop case, which is huge, a chrome bag, and then I would usually wear a coat no matter where we were going and stuff the pockets with stuff. And so I had a lot of stuff, but I didn't have, since 9/11, Sharpies, knives or anything like that. I didn't have a weapon on most of the things I did, and I could only carry so much food in that combination. And so what I would do, and I've talked about this before, whenever I got to where I was going, I'd rent the car, and then on my way usually to the hotel, I would stop at a Walmart, and whoever I was working with, they pay you money to eat every day, and that money is based on eating out, but you get the money. And so I would go to Walmart and buy real food that I could eat in my hotel room with the microwave and the fridge and that kind of thing, and set myself up for the week or so that I was going to be there. But I would also usually buy a bunch of Power Bars and Cliff Bars and things like that. I would buy a bunch of tuna fish, and I would buy a kitchen butcher knife, still in the, how it comes in that hard plastic and they hang them up. I'd buy one of those so I have a good knife. Usually I was buying Old Hickories because they're not that expensive, but they're actually pretty good knives. And I would buy a case or two of water depending on where I was, just the little bottles of water, and I would throw that stuff, Sister Kate's here, I would throw that stuff in the trunk of the car. I'm making a video, sweetie. Did you hear me? I'm making a video right now. So I would throw that stuff in the trunk of the car so that I had food and water and a knife, worst case. And I always had a plan. If I see the world melting down, I'm going to go to Walmart and buy these things in the camping section. Right? Really fast. But it wouldn't take me long. And I'd probably grab as much food as I could grab if there wasn't a panic going on, and throw that in the back, like peanut butter and stuff. And then my plan was I can get out of there and get home with the stuff I brought with me in my carry-on bag, and the extra stuff I bought. And then what do you do about all that stuff when you fly back? Because my bags were full coming, so there's no room for all that extra stuff. I always tip the maids in hotels. I always, the way I do it is the first day I'm there, I write a little note. And I say, I only drink caffeinated coffee. Would you please give me extra caffeinated coffee for the little coffee maker? And they always do. And so then the next day I say thanks and leave them like $5, right? And then I tip them every day and I tell them thanks, just a couple bucks on a note. And so they're getting used to seeing notes from me. And there's security implications to that too, which I'm not going into right now. And then what I do is the last day, I just leave the water and the knife, brand new, in the package, and the tuna fish. And usually the housekeeper's name by then. They usually sign it, Joni or Sherry or something. And I say, hey, Sherry, thanks a lot. Keep this or give it to someone who needs it. And I just leave it there. It's small. We're going to go out that way. It's small, right?
Yeah, that'll work.
Okay. It's small doings for the extra supplies. So then the plan is to get home. Plan A is in the vehicle that I have. But I always have plan B. I've told this story before. I was working up in North Dakota, and we were on the Platte River, real close to it where we were working. And I thought, man, if I have to, I'm going to get a boat. And I will take the boat to the Missouri, and the Missouri to Leavenworth, Kansas, which is where I was based at the time. And from there I could get home. And so, you always have plan B. So have a plan to get home. And that plan is not just transportation and route. That plan is supplies and gear and whatever you need for the environments you have to cross. Towards that end, are we going to go left or right up here? Left. Towards that end, when you're traveling, I don't care if you're going to Hawaii from Ohio. If it's February, you better have warm clothes. If you're flying across the Rockies, you better have, proper clothing. It just kills me when I see people on airplanes flying in flip-flop shorts and some useless shirt. It's like, what if something happens? You know, you should have a plan to survive. And so that's that. Have a plan to get home, have the supplies, you know, do the best you can with what you got where you're at. Now, as far as the person who's at home, somebody asked me, actually Tertius asked me.
Oh, Tertius, smart guy.
He is a smart guy. If one of the spouses is traveling, what kind of things do you do? So I just got done talking about the spouse who travels. And again, if you can drive, you can take everything, right? You can take your bug out bag, your rifle, whatever. But now we're going to talk about the spouse who stays home. What about the spouse who stays home?
Extra security.
Yeah, they're on their own now, so they've got a plan for extra security. Like you said, you have to take other things into account all the time. In our case, I was gone. I'm me. Sister Kate's home alone with the kids, so she would get a little bit more paranoid, take a little bit more care with security applications and think things through that normally kind of falls on my shoulders.
Only do things during the daytime. I wouldn't be going anywhere at night. I would make sure everything was locked up, that I was capable of defending myself. We have dogs. We've always had dogs. And usually big dogs, and they are in the house. They're not out in the yard. So they're going to alert if anything comes and it's trying to get in your house at night.
And so this is why when you have family security plans, family prepper plans, I don't like having half your face in
It's
there.
fine. The video's about you, Pastor.
All right. Look at that, no hands. When you have those plans, both spouses have to know the plans. You have to at least be familiar with what the other one's doing, because if something happens, you're going to be on your own. Well, you're both going to be on your own, but I'm talking about the one at home. You're going to be on your own for at least a while.
Right. And that word, you have to have that word that means stuff is going down.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that.
Yeah.
And so you have to, the spouse at home and the spouse traveling have to talk to each other, and they have to know the plan. What's the general plan in the event of a bad event and no communication? Like cell phones, no worky. What's the plan? What are you doing? Do I have to come meet you halfway to help you? If, you know, whatever. You got to have that talked out so you know about each other. We had throughout our career different code words that we could, usually back then they didn't have text, we could use on the phone call, like, hey, pick up apples on the way to the grocery store. And that would mean something to the person on the other end of the line, meaning, I am leaving and not coming back for an indeterminate period of time. I'll check in when I can. Because a lot of times I had jobs where I couldn't really even say I was leaving.
He might even be out of the country, so he's not going to do me a whole lot of good.
Right, but it would at least sensitize them to, don't think I'm going to be back in 2 days, because I'm not, so start taking action. The other thing is to have a place where you're going to leave each other notes or communication if electronic communication is out. In other words, hey, I will post a note on the refrigerator door about, like, let's say I'm traveling, Kate's at home, and something happens in the world bad, she's digging it out at home, I'm still not back yet, and then she's got to go to place Bravo. Well, it would be kind of nice for me to know that, where she is and what her plans were. And so have a designated place. Another thing you could do is, if you know that I'll be coming into town along this route most likely, and you're evacuating out the same general way, maybe you could, you know, leave a signal on a lamppost, right? I'm going to tie this yellow-orange tape around this particular lamppost if I'm going to area Bravo. So you don't even have to go all the way home if you don't want to. The spouse who's out's coming back, sees that, diverts to location Bravo. And there's more clandestine signals you can do, but that's getting beyond the scope of this. The bottom line is, have a plan. If I can't stay here at home while you're away, where am I going? What's the plan? And what are the other contingency options? And how do I communicate that to that person? Maybe you're in the unfortunate position. You're going to tell me where to go,
yes,
right? All right,
yes.
I'll just keep driving. I'm in the unfortunate position where plan A is to bug out to location Alpha. if anything happens. Okay, well, if we both know that and something happens and I'm away, I'm not going home. I'm going to location Alpha. And then if that has to change, then you got to communicate that. Can you think of anything else? I've gone a little bit long.
No,
That's it.
that's your basics.
Have a plan, talk it out, coordinate with each other so you know what you're doing. Try to do the best you can as far as having not only the plan, but the tools and equipment and supplies that you need, the mode of transportation that you need, and always work out backups in your head. Plan B, plan C, plan D, pace. All right, we will see you out there.
Shalom.